Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of The Sauce. We're into NFL Week 10 Sundays here, so I'm going to get through as many of these games as I can. Coming off a good NFL Sunday. Last Sunday was good to me. Hopefully that repeats. We got an early game, and then I think we got 12 others. So yeah, whatever I don't get to, we'll go through on the live show at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Week 10, let's do it.
Welcome to The Sauce. The Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
First up, we got Giants-Panthers over in Germany. Panthers are catching 6.5 points, total sitting at 40.5. Let's take a look at the pie charts, and according to this data, tickets are coming in pretty heavily on the Carolina side. 70% of the tickets, over 70% of the money coming in on the Giants. So let's get into this matchup, and I know this isn't a true road game for the Giants, but it is technically a road game. They're away from MetLife, which is probably what they need, because dating back to 2018, they've been much better away from MetLife. 34-22 against the number compared to 21-31-2. So the Giants have definitely been much better on the road, or away from MetLife, as I should say. You can see a huge difference in their offensive production. Here are their home games this year, just 10.6 points per game at home, 4.7 yards per play, 43.1% success rate. Look at their numbers on the road. 21.5 points per game, 6.2 yards per play is actually good, 48% success rate. So the Giants offense has actually been pretty good away from home. They also always seem to play well against Carolina. In their last 10 matchups against the Panthers, they're 8-2 against the number, 3-1 against the spread in their last 4 away from MetLife, which this one is away from MetLife. So they've played well against the Panthers. You look at the Giants' offensive numbers, obviously it doesn't look great. 27th in yards per play, 22nd in success rate, passing numbers looking like a bottom 10, maybe even a bottom 5, bottom 10 unit in the NFL. Rushing numbers slightly better than that, and you know what? Since they started giving the carries to Tyrone Tracy, the Giants actually do have something of a rushing attack. I mean, it almost doesn't matter how bad the Giants offense is, because they're still going to have the mismatch over the Panthers defense, which is just... wow. 29th in yards per play, dead last in success rate, dead last in EPA, dead last in DVOA. Terrible against the run, terrible against the pass. The Giants offensive line has really struggled this year. 22nd in adjusted line yards, 25th in run blocking grade, 27th in pressure rate, 22nd in pass blocking grade. They're still going to have the significant advantage here because the Panthers defensive front couldn't compete in the Big 12. Right now, they're dead last in adjusted line yards, 30th in run defense grade, dead last in pressure rate, dead last in pass rush grade. They don't create pressure. They don't get any push. And Daniel Jones, look, his numbers when given a clean pocket aren't excellent, but they're definitely significantly better than his numbers when pressured. I mean, yards per attempt goes from a 4.9 under pressure to 6.8. Passer rating from 62.8 to 92.1. So Daniel Jones, when given a clean pocket, significantly better. He definitely should have clean pockets in this one, despite the Giants' offensive line being a mess without Andrew Thomas. And the Giants should also be able to get the run game going in this one. Their offensive line not creating a ton of space here. 22nd in adjusted line yards, 25th in run blocking grade. Still significant advantage over the Panthers' defensive front. This is a Carolina defense that gets run on basically every single game. Look at their last 4. 180 rushing yards allowed per game, 5.11 yards per carry, success rate per rush over 52%. That's terrible. And like I said, since the Giants started handing the ball off to Tracy, 138.8 rushing yards per game, 5 yards per carry, 40.1% success rate per rush isn't great, but no question the Giants run game has definitely seen a little bit of a boost since Tyrone Tracy became the primary RB. So I like the Giants to be able to run the ball in this one. Now in terms of the coverage matchup for Daniel Jones, Carolina runs a lot of zone coverage, a lot of single high safety looks, a lot of cover 3. Daniel Jones actually has better numbers against man coverage. 14th, 22nd, 13th, and 24th against man, 25th, 28th, 27th, and 33rd. So he has struggled against zone coverage, but against single high safety looks, he's been significantly better than against 2 high safety looks. I mean, not that it's a great matchup for Daniel Jones. He's not the best against zone coverage, but it's the Panthers, so I kind of don't care. I think he'll be able to throw the ball a little bit. So, yeah, Giants should be able to move the ball in this game. The Panthers' defense is truly terrible. But what about on the other side of the ball? Are we talking about a red-hot Panthers offense here? Obviously, I'm saying that sarcastically. They did score 23 points last week, 4 of 10 on third downs. 3 for 3 in trips to the red zone, 4.9 yards per play. Okay, Carolina. Bryce Young, 16 of 26, 171 yards, a touchdown, a pick, 77.6 passer rating. So even in their win, Bryce Young didn't play particularly well in terms of throwing the ball. And that game was against a Saints defense that truly might be one of the worst in the NFL. In weeks 1 through 4, they were defending the pass pretty well against Carolina, Dallas, Philadelphia, Atlanta, 252.3 passing yards allowed per game, 7 yards per attempt. But in the 4 games since then, the Saints have been getting lit up. And in that particular game last week against Carolina, they were missing 3 of their top 4 corners. The Saints defense is also terrible against the run. So the Saints defense, as it stands, with the injuries to the corners, the Saints defense that the Panthers saw last week might be the worst in the NFL, with the exception of the Panthers. The truth is, it doesn't even matter that the Panthers won last week. We know this offense is not good with Bryce Young at quarterback. In the 4 games he's played, they're averaging 12.5 points per game, 4.7 yards per play, success rate under 37%. The run game doesn't work when Bryce Young's in there either. 75 rushing yards per game, 3.8 yards per carry. Success rate per rush under 28% is terrible. The Panthers' offensive numbers with Andy Dalton at quarterback were significantly better. You could see a lot of green on this chart. Now they're skewed from the Raiders game. He went nuts in that one. But no question, the Panthers' offense was more formidable with Andy Dalton at quarterback. The one bright spot of this Carolina team is the offensive line. They truly do have a good offensive line. They're 4th in adjusted line yards, 13th in run blocking grade, solid numbers in pass protection as well. Problem is, they're not really healthy in that department. Austin Corbett, the center, is going to miss another game. Iquanu, the left tackle, he's going to miss another game. So they're missing 2 pieces from that offensive line. I mean, they still have talent on that unit, but this Giants pass rush is good. This might be a top 5 pass rush in the NFL. That's a strength of the Giants team. They're 5th in pressure rate, 7th in pass rush grade, 1st in adjusted sack rate. So with the injuries to the Panthers offensive line, they're still a good unit, but I'm sure the Giants are able to generate some pressure on Bryce Young. Now, if you are looking to take the points with the Panthers here, you can look at this right here. Panthers, a lot of zone blocking run schemes, 6th in frequency, so they run a lot of zone blocking schemes. They're pretty good at it too with that offensive line. That actually plays into the weakness of this Giants defense. They're 29th in the NFL in yards per carry allowed against zone blocking schemes. So maybe you're looking at these numbers like, okay, the Panthers can run the ball in this game. Problem is, Carolina hasn't been running the ball. In their last 4 games, they're averaging 90.5 rushing yards per game, 4.2 yards per carry, success rate per rush under 37%. So the Panthers' run game really hasn't been there. The Giants' run defense isn't good, so maybe the Panthers are able to run the ball a bit in this game, but unfortunately, I have no faith at all in Bryce Young. So as disgusting as looking at the Giants as 6.5-point favorites is, that would be the only way I could go here. I haven't bet this one yet. I was thinking about maybe using the Giants as a teaser, one of those Wong teasers, tease it down to a 0.5 point, maybe. As of right now, my pick for this game is Giants minus 6.5. Currently don't have a bet on it. I'll let you know if I do. Next game. New England on the road in Chicago. Bears are laying 6. It looks like most of the 6.5s are gone. I'm seeing mostly 6 now. Total sitting all the way down at 38.5. Gives you an idea of what kind of game they're expecting here. Let's take a look at the pie charts. According to the data, action is coming in on the Chicago side slightly. Just over 55% of the tickets, over 60% of the money. As I always say, take it with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup, and the Bears are back home, which is great news if you're a Bears fan, because they haven't lost there yet. 4-0 at home, 4-0 against the spread, compared to on the road, 0-4 straight up, 0-3-1 against the spread. So the Bears on the road have been absolutely terrible. The Bears at home have handled their business. In terms of Caleb Williams throwing the ball, we've seen kind of a mixed bag. Started off the season looking terribly in weeks 1 and 2 against the Titans and Texans. I mean, the passing numbers are horrible here. 133.5 passing yards per game, 4 yards per attempt. Then there was a 4-game stretch there where Caleb looked like he was getting his shit together. Over 262 passing yards per game, 8 yards per attempt, 69% success rate per dropback. But then the last 2 games, we're seeing the production fall off a cliff again. Down to 5.4 yards per attempt, 174 yards per game. That's against Washington and Arizona, 2 defenses we don't necessarily think are great. Although the Commanders' defense has been much better under Dan Quinn, so let's give the Commanders some credit. But yeah, we've seen Caleb Williams' production fall back off a cliff, looking like weeks 1 and 2 all over again. The thing is, I don't know how much of the blame for that we should throw at Caleb Williams. Not that he was good, but the Bears' offensive line in terms of pass protection is falling apart. Last week on the road in Arizona, 22 of 41, 217 yards. He was sacked 6 times. That's against the Cardinals. I mean, bottom 10 pass defense this year. 24th in yards per pass attempt, 32nd in success rate. The Cardinals don't even have a pass rush. 27th in pressure rate, 30th in pass rush grade. They sacked Caleb Williams 6 times. So now we're looking at this matchup. We're looking at the Patriots pass rush, 25th in pressure rate, 15th in pass rush grade. Theoretically, this pass rush shouldn't be a threat, but when your offensive line looks like this, missing 3 starters, both offensive tackles out for this game and the center out. So this Bears offensive line, not a great unit to begin with, really struggling in terms of pass protection right now. Now for the good news. If you're a Bears fan, the New England Patriots defense is an absolute it's a crime scene right now. First of all, they're missing both safeties. Peppers out, Duggar out. Also, their third safety, he's listed as questionable. So they might have their 4th and 5th safeties out there, but it actually gets worse than that. Bentley, their main linebacker, he's out. Bentley's backup, his name is Ellis, he's out. So they're going to have their 4th linebacker out there playing. On the defensive line, Barmore's out. I can't remember his name, but the guy that plays in place of Barmore, he's questionable. He might not even play. They just got Ngakoue from Baltimore. He's out. Oh, and by the way, Uche's gone. They just traded him. So that's an edge rusher that's gone. Also, another edge rusher, I can't remember his name. They have another guy that's out. So this Patriots defense, they have their corners, which is huge because they play man coverage to cover the Bears receivers. So that's actually a plus for the Patriots. But in terms of the rest of the defense, the safeties, the linebackers, the pass rush, everything, I mean, this defense, like I said, crime scene. So it's kind of tough to say whether or not Caleb Williams is going to have time to throw in this game. On one hand, you have a battered Bears offensive line that's really been struggling, that couldn't even keep him safe against the Cardinals. On the other hand, you have a Patriots defense that is just a mess. So kind of tough to handicap that matchup there. Now, I will say something I do like for the Bears. If you look at their numbers on the season, this isn't a particularly good rushing attack. 24th in yards per carry, 23rd in success rate per rush, 21st in EPA, 21st in DVOA. But check this out. The Bears run a lot of gap concept blocking schemes, 6th most in the NFL. Pretty good at it, too. They're 7th in the NFL in yards per carry. That happens to play right into the weakness of this Patriots defense. They're 28th in the NFL in yards per carry allowed against gap concept blocking schemes. So even though I'm not particularly fond of the Bears run game and the offensive line is a mess, you take into consideration the safeties out, the linebackers, and just the current situation of the Patriots defense, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears are able to run the ball in this game. Now, what about on the other side of the ball? Let's talk about the Patriots offense with Drake May, and spoiler alert, this is a tough spot for Drake May, man, on the road in Chicago. First of all, the Patriots offense hasn't been any good. 31st in yards per play, 26th in success rate. You did not need me to tell you that. If you own a television or a smartphone, you know that the Patriots offense hasn't been very good. The biggest problem this unit has is right here, the offensive line. Not only coming into the season was it projected to be one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, but they are injured to all hell. They've been banged up all season. The offensive line play we've seen from New England has been dreadful so far this season. Last week against the Titans, Drake May was pressured on 44.2% of his dropbacks. Drop back to pass 52 times, by the way. So yeah, he was under some pressure. And by the way, the Titans pass rush hasn't even been good this year. The Titans specialize in stopping the run. They don't generate a lot of pressure. 20th in pressure rate, 27th in pass rush grade. Actually, heading into last week's game against the Patriots, Tennessee was 30th in pressure rate. They were pressuring opposing quarterbacks on just 27.6% of their dropbacks. Last week against New England, 44.2%, third most in the NFL. That's what the Titans pass rush did. What do you think the Bears pass rush is going to do? This is one of the better pass rushes in the NFL. They're 8th in pressure rate, 10th in pass rush grade, 6th in adjusted sack rate. In fact, of all the aspects of this Chicago Bears team, the pass rush has been, the secondary's played really well also, but the Bears pass rush has been the backbone of this team. It's been the best part of this Bears team so far. Now, I know we've seen a dip in production when it comes to the Bears pass defense. In weeks 1 through 5, it was looking like Chicago might have the best pass defense in the NFL. In weeks 1 through 5, 194.4 passing yards allowed per game, 6.4 yards per attempt, 40% success rate, 65.8 average opponent passer rating. In the 3 games since then, we've seen a huge drop-off in production, 7.7 yards per attempt, success rates up over 48%, 91.1 passer rating. So we haven't seen quite the same elite pass defense from the Bears in the last few games. That being said, I mean, you look at the opponents. The Jags have Lawrence, Washington has Daniels, Cardinals have Kyler Murray. They played teams that have quarterbacks. Not that these are elite passing attacks, but this matchup against New England and their passing attack, I mean, this is just next level bad. Now, I will give Drake May some credit. He's actually handled pressure well, which is huge behind the offensive line that he's playing behind. But 21st in yards per attempt, 15th in passer rating when pressured. Turnover-worthy play rate, though, 6.1% when pressured. So turnover-worthy play rate is a problem. But as a whole, he hasn't been bad when pressured, but this is just not the matchup for him. I mean, what does Chicago do defensively? They run a lot of zone coverage, a lot of cover three, a lot of single high safety looks. Drake May, significantly better numbers against man coverage this year. He struggled against zone coverage. Also, against single high safety looks, way worse than two high safety looks. So back-to-back bad splits for Drake May against this Bears team, and it actually gets worse. They run a lot of cover three, a ton of cover three, actually. Drake May's been terrible trying to throw the ball in cover three. 36 in yards per pass attempt, 31st in passer rating, 32nd in turnover-worthy play rate. So, okay, he's handled pressure well, but I'm not liking the matchup for Drake May at all here. Now, if you are looking to bet New England here, I do have an angle for you, and it's actually kind of a good one. So if you're betting the Patriots, you'll like this here. So maybe the Patriots can run the ball in this game. The Bears have been a little vulnerable to the run at times this year. The Patriots run a lot of gap concept blocking schemes, 5th most in the NFL. That actually plays directly into the weakness of this Bears defensive front. They're actually one of the worst defenses in the NFL against gap concept blocking schemes, 29th in yards per carry allowed. So there's something. Maybe New England can run the ball on Chicago in this game. We've seen teams run the ball on the Bears this year. Here's the problem with that. I mean, New England hasn't been running the ball. In their last 4 games, just 85.5 rushing yards per game, 3.7 yards per carry, 20% success rate per rush is horrible. So even though it's a favorable matchup for the Patriots on the ground, you really trust them to go on the road to Chicago and just hand the ball off and run the ball? I mean, maybe a little bit, but as a whole, I hate this matchup for the Patriots offense. Back at home where the Bears are comfortable, we should see a really, really strong defensive performance from the Bears. Don't love the matchup for Caleb Williams, but it'll only be Bears for me in this one. Actually, this is the other half. So right after I recorded the Giants-Panthers one, I added this. So I have Giants moneyline, Bears moneyline parlayed at -118. I don't know if that's the best mathematical bet in the world. I don't care. That's the bet I placed. I think both those teams win. Giants moneyline, Bears moneyline -118. That's what I took. Next game. We got the Bills on the road in Indianapolis for this one. Colts are catching 4 points at home. Total sitting at 48. I do see a couple 47.5s out there. Let's take a look at the pie charts, and according to the data, action's coming in pretty heavily on one side. About 90% of the tickets, about 85% of the money coming in on the Bills side. As I always say, take this data with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup, and we'll start with the Bills offense against the Colts defense. Bills pretty well-rounded offensively. I mean, I think most would agree this is definitely a top 10 offense, maybe even a top 5 offense. This is an offense that wants to run the ball. They use the run to set up the big plays with Josh Allen, and on the season, they've been pretty efficient with it. 12th in yards per carry, 9th in success rate per rush, 5th in EPA, 7th in DVOA. So will they be able to get the run game going against the Colts defense? Well, the Colts surprisingly solid against the run. 10th in yards per carry allowed, 13th in success rate per rush, 6th in EPA, 17th in DVOA. But is that going to be enough? Because this Bills offense, as I'm sure you know, they've been on a rampage recently. In their last 4 games, they're averaging 29.5 points per game, 6.7 yards per play, success rate over 58%. This offense has been cruising, and there's some decent defenses in here. The Jets, the Titans, the Dolphins defense has been pretty solid. Seattle, no. But the other 3, I mean, that's 3 decent defenses. This Bills offense is on a mission. Here's the thing I noticed about the Bills offense. I'm pulling up these 3 games here. These are the 3 games where Buffalo was unable to run the football. And I know you see 4.6 yards per carry, just 108.3 rushing yards per game in these 3, 36.6% success rate per rush. And that's what it comes down to when you're playing the Bills. You have to stop them from moving the chains on the ground, because that's exactly what Joe Brady wants to do. He wants to keep his offense on the field, move the chains with the run game. That's exactly what they want to do. And these 3 teams kept Buffalo from doing this. They lost 2 of these games, and Miami, they almost lost. They came down to the wire. Check this out. The Colts, in their last 8 games against the run, 142 rushing yards allowed per game, 4.34 yards per carry, 34.2% success rate per rush. So the one thing this Colts defense is good at doing is keeping their opponent from moving the chains on the ground. It might be a little bit thin, but it's something. The Colts defense excels at exactly what you need to do to beat this Buffalo Bills offense. Now you might say, well, Kyle, the Colts haven't seen a ton of rushing attacks recently. And you're kind of right. If you pull up their game logs, I mean, I said the last 8 games, that's since week 2. At Green Bay, not the most elite rushing attack. Bears can't run it. Steelers have been struggling to run it, although they're getting a little better recently. Jacksonville's a decent rushing attack. Tennessee can't do anything. Miami, okay, a little bit. At Houston, at Minnesota. So the last two games, Houston with Joe Mixon's a solid rushing attack, and the Vikings, another solid rushing attack. 34% success rate per rush and 39% success rate per rush. So even when the Colts see good rushing attacks, they're still keeping their opponents from moving the chains on the ground. Keep in mind, this Colts defense was banged up for a lot of this season, but right now, they're as healthy as they've been. I mean, still no Juju Brent, still no Abukum, but Kwity Paye is healthy. He was hurt. DeForest Buckner's healthy. Grover Stewart I don't think has been hurt. EJ Speed was banged up. He's healthy. Kenny Moore was banged up. He's healthy too. So this Colts defense might be equipped to stop the Buffalo Bills rushing attack from moving the chains, which is exactly what you need to do. Now we get to the second half of this, though. Are the Colts able to stop Josh Allen through the air? Well, let's take a look at the coverage matchups. Colts on the season, 3rd in zone frequency, 4th in cover 3, 4th in cover 2. So they sit in zone coverage. They run a lot of cover 3, a lot of cover 2. Let's look at the matchup for Josh Allen. Josh Allen against zone coverage this year, not anything special. 23rd in completion percentage, 18th in passer rating, 21st in yards per pass attempt. Specifically against cover 2, 25th in completion percentage, 9th in passer rating, 8th in yards per attempt. So, okay, he's had some success against cover 2. Against cover 3, nothing really crazy. 13th, 16th, and 21st. So coverage-wise, not the best matchup for Josh Allen. His numbers don't exactly jump off the page here. So as we're going through this, maybe this is a decent matchup for the Colts defense. Maybe they're able to give Buffalo's offense some problems. But then we get to the pass rush, and this is where it gets a little bit concerning if you're a Colts fan or if you're betting the Colts. They're 31st in pressure rate, 22nd in pass rush grade, 29th in adjusted sack rate. The Colts do not generate consistent pressure, which means Josh Allen is going to have time to throw. And when you're talking about a quarterback of Josh Allen's caliber, it doesn't always matter if it's not a great coverage matchup for him. If you give him time to throw, he's going to find ways to beat you. So even though coverage-wise it's a decent matchup for the Colts defense against Josh Allen, he's going to have time to throw, and it's hard to imagine he's not going to make plays against the Colts secondary. His numbers when given a clean pocket this year are definitely solid. 11th in yards per attempt, 6th in passer rating, 15th in turnover-worthy play rate. So yeah, Josh Allen's going to have time to throw, and even though he doesn't have the best numbers against cover 2 and cover 3, I'm sure he's going to make some plays. As a whole on this side, though, I do think the Colts defense is a bit tougher of a matchup as you would perceive. I think a lot of people are looking at this, Buffalo's going to steamroll the Colts defense. I wouldn't go that far. I think the Colts are able to give the Bills run game problems and propose some problems for Josh Allen. But what about on the other side of the ball? Let's take a look at the matchup for the Colts offense. Passing numbers look pretty terrible on the season, but these include the Anthony Richardson games. We really need to isolate just the Joe Flacco games. In the 4 games Flacco started, passing numbers look pretty good. Over 247 passing yards per game, 7.1 yards per attempt, 53.6% success rate per dropback is very good, 93.6 average passer rating. So when Joe Flacco starts, the Colts have had a pretty good passing attack. That being said, the entire Colts offense looked terrible last week at Minnesota. Just 13 points, 5.5 yards per play, 42.2% success rate. Was not a great offensive showing for the Colts. But honestly, I didn't think Joe Flacco played that poorly. It really came down to this. They couldn't run the ball at all last week against the Vikings. Just 3.8 yards per carry, 69 yards on the ground, 33.3% success rate per rush is terrible. So in my opinion, this is why the Colts offense looked so bad last week. Not so much Joe Flacco. So the question becomes, are the Bills able to stop the Colts from running the ball? And the answer is complicated. We've been through the roller coaster with this Bills run defense so far this year. Through the first 4 games, they were allowing 5.7 yards per carry, over 156 rushing yards per game, looking exactly like last year. Last year, the Bills were a weak defense against the run. Through 4 games, it was looking like nothing has changed. But then the 4 games after that, out of nowhere, they were an elite run defense. 3.8 yards per carry, 25% success rate per rush, just 84.3 rushing yards allowed in these 4 games. Houston, Jets, Titans, Seahawks. Now, you can point at the fact these aren't the great rushing attacks, but still 25% success rate per rush. I don't care who you're playing. That's impressive. So the Bills out of nowhere had this elite run defense for 4 weeks after having a terrible run defense for the 4 weeks before that. But then last week happened and the Dolphins ran all over them again. 150 yards on the ground, 5 yards per carry, 50% success rate per rush. So if you ask me, Kyle, do the Bills have a good run defense? I honestly don't know. They're either the worst run defense in the NFL or for a 4-week stretch, they were elite. I personally do think the Colts will be able to run the ball a bit. in this game. Keep in mind, Jonathan Taylor is healthy. He missed a chunk of the season before last week where they couldn't run the ball at all against the Vikings. In the Jonathan Taylor games before last week, they were averaging over 136 rushing yards per game, 5.4 yards per carry. Success rate per rush didn't look good, just 37.3%. But still, we know when Jonathan Taylor's on the field, Colts have a solid offensive line. They do have a rushing attack. So I do think the Colts will be able to make some plays on the ground. Here's where I'm concerned. They're missing 2 starters on the offensive line. Ryan Kelly, Will Freeze, both out. 2 interior offensive linemen out. That's not what you want to be looking at if you're talking about establishing the run. So I really don't know. I do think Jonathan Taylor will be able to run the ball a bit, but as a whole, don't have a ton of faith. Now, what about Joe Flacco making plays through the air? Well, the Bills run a lot of zone coverage, 5th most in the NFL. They run mixed, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, cover 6. They're pretty balanced. They run it all. They run a lot of zone coverage. We know that. Joe Flacco's been pretty solid against zone coverage this year. 10th in pass rating, 26th in yards per attempt. Obviously isn't great, but 10th in pass rating, top 10 in pass rating against zone coverage. 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. So not a bad matchup for Joe Flacco at all. I'm a little worried that the entire Bills defense is healthy, and actually Von Miller's back too. So we know this Bills pass rush is pretty extreme, especially when Von Miller's healthy. The Colts do have a great pass protection, but they're missing 2 interior offensive linemen, so I don't really know what to make of that. As a whole, a lot of moving pieces in this game. I did bet it. I took the Colts at plus 4.5 in this one. I know the 4.5s are gone. I'd probably still play it at 4. I don't absolutely love it, but I do think the Colts will be able to run the ball a little bit, and I think that Colts defense is better against the run than people think. So I don't think this should be more than a field goal on the road in Indianapolis. So I'm on Colts plus 4.5 here next. Next up is Minnesota Jacksonville. I recorded this one earlier in the week, and actually right after I finished recording it, Trevor Lawrence was ruled out. So obviously when I'm talking about Trevor Lawrence, that doesn't apply, but here it is. Minnesota on the road in Jacksonville. The Jags are now catching 4.5. It was at 4 for a couple days. Looks like 4.5s across the board at the time of recording. Total sitting at 44.5 or 45, depending on your sports book. Let's take a look at the pie charts, and according to the data, action seems to be coming in pretty heavily on one side. 90% of the tickets, 95% of the money coming in on the Vikings. Take this data with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup, and we'll start with the Jacksonville defense, or the lack of a defense, we should say. They're actually not bad against the run. Let's give them a little bit of credit. They're flirting with the idea of being a top 10 run defense, probably slightly lower than that. But their numbers against the pass, good Lord. 29th in yards per pass attempt, 27th in success rate per dropback, dead last in EPA, dead last in DVOA. Everybody has been throwing the ball on the Jags this year. So will that continue with Sam Darnold and the Vikings? Well, let's take a look at the coverage matchup. As we know, Nielsen is the DC here. He was with the Falcons last year. So just like the Falcons last year, Jags are running a lot of man coverage, 2nd most in the NFL, 1st in cover 1 frequency, 3rd in cover 2 frequency. That happens to be a really nice matchup for Sam Darnold. On the season, he's been definitely more productive against man coverage. Completion percentage, yards per attempt, passer rating, turnover-worthy play rate, 10th, 2nd, 3rd, 16th against man. Against zone, 15th, 5th, 20th, 32nd. So he's been better against man coverage. That's a good start. But actually, it gets better than that. Against cover 1 this year, amongst 36 qualified quarterbacks, Sam Darnold is 2nd in yards per pass attempt, 4th in passer rating. So he's performed very well against cover 1, and against cover 2, 2nd in yards per pass attempt, 10th in passer rating, 2nd in hero percentage, which is basically big time throw rate. So Sam Darnold's been good against man, good against cover 1, good against cover 2. That's what Jacksonville does right there. Not to mention they're looking like one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. So yeah, it's definitely a favorable matchup for Sam Darnold. He should have plenty of opportunities to make throws. And check this out. Jacksonville has no pass rush. 32nd in blitz rate, 22nd in pressure rate, 26th in adjusted sack rate. So not only is it a great matchup for Sam Darnold, but he should have all day to throw. So yeah, not looking great for Jacksonville in that department. I will say though, turnovers starting to become an issue here with Sam Darnold. Look at his numbers when given a clean pocket. I mean, 9.1 yards per attempt, that's 6th best in the NFL. 111.5 passer rating, 8th best in the NFL. Turnover-worthy play rate, 4% when given a clean pocket. So we know in this matchup, Sam Darnold's definitely going to have clean pockets to throw from. He's definitely going to have opportunities to make big plays against this Jags secondary. Can he keep from throwing interceptions? Because he threw a couple bad ones against the Colts last week as well. But if he's able to protect the ball, he should have a big game through the air in this one. Now, will he have run support in this game, and that's a little bit tougher. The Jags do have good numbers against the run on the season. In the last 5 games, they're allowing 141 rushing yards per game, 5 yards per carry, but 33% success rate per rush is very good. So kind of a mixed bag there. But if you look at the opponents, I mean, they played the Colts without Jonathan Taylor. The Bears can't run the ball. The Patriots, the Packers, not much of a rushing attack. The Eagles are in there. So I'm really not sure what to take away from this. They're getting run on, but success rate per rush indicates they're not letting their opponents move the chains on the ground, which is huge. Vikings are also significantly better running the ball behind zone blocking schemes. That plays right into the strength of the Jags defense. They're actually one of the best defenses in the NFL against zone blocking schemes. Not to mention, we've kind of seen this Minnesota rushing attack fall off a cliff here. Through the first 4 games, 4.8 yards per carry, over 125 rushing yards per game, 43.8% success rate per rush. Solid rushing numbers through the first 4 games, but in the last 4, I mean, we've seen a definite dip in production from the Vikings rushing attack. So to be honest, I'm not sure if Sam Darnold's going to have run support in this game, but like I said, I do expect them to have clean pockets to throw from, and I like the matchup against the Jags secondary. So plenty of opportunities for Sam Darnold to make huge plays through the air. Can he keep from throwing the interceptions? But what about on the other side of the ball? Let's take a look at the matchup for the Jags offense. It's been pretty solid this season. 13th in yards per play, 15th in success rate. Pretty balanced offensively. Earlier in the season, they were running the ball. Recently, Trevor Lawrence seems to be getting it going a bit through the air. Passing numbers on the year, 15th in yards per pass attempt, 18th in success rate. Rushing numbers slightly above average. They're definitely in for a tough matchup here, though. Minnesota, as I'm sure you know, one of the best defenses in the NFL, maybe the best run defense in the NFL, probably a top 5 to top 10 pass defense as well. They're 8th in yards per play, 5th in success rate. That being said, there are a couple decent angles here for Trevor Lawrence and the Jags if you're trying to bet Jacksonville here. Number 1, Trevor Lawrence has been throwing the deep ball a lot. Over 15% of Trevor Lawrence's pass attempts this year have been considered deep passes. That actually plays into the weakness of the Vikings pass defense. They're elite against the short pass, just 15th in DVOA against the deep pass. So Trevor Lawrence, a quarterback that likes to throw the deep ball, he may have some opportunities here against this Vikings secondary. Another thing we know about Brian Flores' defense, he blitzes a lot. They're actually first in blitz rate this year. That's actually a positive angle for Trevor Lawrence. He's been significantly better when blitzed. Completion percentage, PFF passer grade, hero percentage, turnover-worthy play rate, passer rating when blitzed, 13th, 7th, 7th, 14th, 14th. When not blitzed, 35th, 17th, 18th, 27th, and 23rd. So we're off to a decent start for Trevor Lawrence in this handicap. A couple of nice angles there for Trevor Lawrence. That being said, there's definitely some bad ones as well. First of all, Brian Flores blitz packages, they work. They generate a lot of pressure, and Trevor Lawrence has been terrible under pressure. So when defenses blitz Trevor Lawrence and don't get home, he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Problem is the Vikings usually get home with their blitzes, and Trevor Lawrence under pressure, 4.4 yards per pass attempt. That's 37th in the NFL, 24th in passer rating, 31st in turnover-worthy play rate. So that's certainly not a great look. We know the Vikings are going to be coming, and Trevor Lawrence has not handled pressure well. Also, what do the Vikings do in coverage? 4th in zone frequency, 2nd in cover 2 frequency, 2nd in cover 0 frequency. Trevor Lawrence against zone, 28th in completion percentage, 8th in yards per attempt. So as we said before, Trevor Lawrence definitely capable of connecting on some big plays. 8th in yards per attempt against zone coverage, 15th in passer rating. So that's not bad, but specifically, the Vikings run a lot of cover 2, and he's terrible against cover 2. 37th in completion percentage, 36th in yards per attempt, 28th in passer rating. So certainly not a great look there for Trevor Lawrence. And on top of that, Trevor Lawrence is used to having some sort of run support. I doubt it in this one. The Vikings against the run this year have been insane. 4 yards per carry obviously isn't crazy good, but just 83 rushing yards per game, 30.7% success rate per rush. This has been one of the best run defenses maybe the best run defense in the NFL so far this year. Also, Jacksonville, a lot of gap concept blocking schemes, 8th most in the NFL. That plays directly into the strength of the Vikings defense. So overall on this side of the ball, I know Trevor Lawrence has been making some plays, and I'm sure against the blitz he'll have some opportunities to do so. So as a whole, I really don't like this matchup for the Jags offensively. I think Minnesota's really going to give Trevor Lawrence problems, and I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball. So I know this is a super square bet. I know the quote-unquote sharp side would be take the points with the Jags. They've looked better offensively as of late, but I don't think the offense is going to be there. I can see Trevor Lawrence turning the ball over a couple times, so I laid it. Not one of my biggest bets, but I did lay the 4.5. I wish I had grabbed the 4 earlier in the week. I didn't. I got the Vikings at -4.5 next game. So yeah, I got lucky as hell with that game. I recorded that video right after I finished recording. I bet Vikings -4.5 because I truly liked it. I liked the Vikings -4.5. Didn't realize that Trevor Lawrence really might not play. I thought it was just, he's questionable, whatever. He's ruled out, moves right up to 7. So I got so lucky with that. I'm holding a Vikings -4.5 ticket. As far as the current number, I mean, anything under 7, I would still go Minnesota. So Minnesota for this one. Next, Pittsburgh on the road in Washington. Commies are laying 2.5 points at home. Total sitting at 44.5. There's some 45s out there as well. Let's take a look at the pie charts, and according to the data, action seems to be coming in on the Pittsburgh side. Over 65% of the tickets, about 70% of the money coming in on the Steelers. As I always say, take this with a grain of salt. So I'm actually going to save this matchup for the live stream. This will be a fun one to talk about on the stream. Real quick, I wanted to bet Washington under 3. The reason I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet, this actually might be a nice matchup for Russell Wilson. What does Washington do defensively? First of all, Washington's been playing better defense recently, so let's give them some credit. But what do they do defensively? They blitz a lot. They run a lot of man coverage. Remember, this is Dan Quinn's defense. They blitz a lot. They run a lot of man coverage. Look at Russell Wilson's numbers against man coverage so far this season. Granted, this is a small sample size, but 5th in the NFL in completion percentage, 1st in yards per attempt, 2nd in big-time throw rate. Much better than his numbers against zone coverage. And look at his numbers against the blitz. 1st in yards per attempt, 20th in PFF passer grade, 1st in big-time throw rate, 14th in pressure to sack rate. Much better than his numbers when not blitzed. So Russell Wilson's been excellent against the blitz, excellent against man coverage. That's what Washington does defensively. So as much as I'd love to lock in at Washington -2.5, I'd love to sell high on this Steelers team that I don't think is very good. I don't know if we can here. So I'm considering an over. We'll talk about it on the live show. 11 a.m. Eastern time. We'll go through every single game on the board. So talk about this one on the live show next. 49ers on the road in Tampa. Bucks are catching 6.5 points at home. Total sitting at 50.5. Let's take a look at the pie charts, and according to the data, action seems to be coming in slightly on the San Francisco side. Not overwhelmingly, though. Just over 50% of the tickets, about 65% of the money coming on San Francisco. Take it with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup, and we'll start with the 49ers offense. Good news, if you're Brock Purdy, this game is on the road. He's been much better on the road this year. Completion percentage drops from 72.3% to 59% at home. Yards per attempt up on the road. Touchdown to interception ratio, look at this. 3 touchdowns to 6 interceptions at home, 7-1 on the road. Passer rating on the road, 121, 76.3 at home. So no question, Brock Purdy's been much better away from San Francisco. And I have some more good news if you're a 49ers fan. You're matched up against the Bucs defense, and Tampa Bay has not been playing the best defense this year. 27th in yards per play, 29th in success rate. They've been struggling against the run and the pass. Can't seem to get anything together defensively here. And in terms of defending the pass, it actually seems to be getting worse. In weeks 1 through 4, they were allowing just 220.5 passing yards per game, 6.1 yards per attempt. Success rate per dropback didn't look great, 58.3%. That's actually bad. Average opponent pass rating, 81.9. So decent numbers against the pass in weeks 1 through 4. Look at their last 5 games, though. They're allowing 320 passing yards per game, 8.3 yards per attempt. Average passer rating up close to 120, almost a 60% success rate per dropback. So for whatever reason, maybe it's the injuries to the secondary. Jamel Dean is hurt. They're also missing another corner. So maybe it's the injuries. For whatever reason, the Bucs pass defense has just fallen off a cliff. So you got Brock Purdy on the road where he's been much better against a Bucs defense that can't stop anybody from throwing the ball. And it actually gets better than that for San Francisco. Tampa Bay runs a lot of zone coverage. In fact, they run the most zone coverage of any team in the NFL. First in zone frequency. Brock Purdy much better against zone coverage. Completion percentage, yards per attempt, passer rating, turnover worthy play rate against man, 34th, 21st, 33rd, 30th. Look at those same categories against zone coverage, 7th, 2nd, 5th, and 4th. So Brock Purdy's actually been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL against zone coverage. Now, when it comes to running the ball, though, this is where we can give the Bucs defense a little bit of credit. Their numbers on the season are terrible, but they seem to be trending in the right direction in this department. In terms of defending the pass, it's the opposite. They can't stop anybody through the air. But defending the run, they seem to be getting better. First 4 games, you can see the top of this graphic, red. But the last 5 games, they've actually put together a few decent defensive performances against the run. Sure, the Ravens ran all over them. Actually, the Falcons did as well. But they played well against the Chiefs run game. Saints, well, the Saints can't run it. And then the Falcons the first time. So a couple decent defensive performances against the run. The problem is they're playing the 49ers, and San Francisco can definitely run the ball. They're third in the NFL in yards per carry, 14th in success rate per rush, 10th in EPA, 11th in DVOA. Not to mention, Christian McCaffrey might be back for this game. He actually participated in a full practice on Friday. So it looks like Christian McCaffrey might be back. Yes, Brandon Ayuk is still out, but Deebo Samuel, he's listed as questionable. It looks like he's going to play as well. Offensive line is fully healthy. So this is the 49ers on the road in a favorable spot for Brock Purdy. Possibly Christian McCaffrey back against a Bucs defense I don't trust. I think San Francisco is going to move the ball fine in this game. But what about the other side of the ball? Let's talk about the Bucs offense. That is most definitely a top 10 unit this year. 6th in yards per play, 4th in success rate. They can throw it. They can run it. The Bucs are looking like a really dangerous offense so far this season. What do we think about this particular matchup against the 49ers defense? Well, bad news for Baker Mayfield. The 49ers do not blitz. They're 30th in blitz rate, and they're still able to generate pressure. And that's how you beat Baker Mayfield. You generate pressure with your front four. Do not send extra rushers. Generate pressure with the front four, and that's what the 49ers do. 30th in blitz rate, 13th in pressure rate. You can see here, Baker Mayfield, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL when blitzed. Completion percentage, yards per attempt, PFF passer grade, turnover-worthy play rate, passer rating. When blitzed, 1st, 6th, 3rd, 5th, 4th. When not blitzed, 12th, 17th, 24th, 35th, 13th. So Baker Mayfield has actually struggled to throw the ball when he's not blitzed. 49ers almost never blitz. And this is a 49ers defense that seems to be heating up against the pass. In the first 3 games of the season, they were allowing 230.7 passing yards per game, 8.7 yards per attempt, 51.5% success rate per dropback, 103.2 average pass rating. They were struggling against the pass in those first 3 games against the Jets, Vikings, and Rams. In the 5 games since then, yards per pass attempt is down to 6. Passer rating down to 68.1. So no question, they're playing much better defense against the pass. And yes, you can say New England's in there, but so is Arizona, Seattle, Geno, Mahomes, Dak Prescott. I mean, they've played some teams. It's not like they're playing nobody. They're playing much, much better defense against the pass recently. Not to mention, as I'm sure you already know, Bucs are very shorthanded in the passing department. They're still missing Evans, still missing Godwin. In fact, McMillan is questionable for this game as well. So still very thin at wide receiver. 49ers should be able to pressure Baker Mayfield without blitzing. I don't really like this matchup for Baker in the air, but I think the Bucs are going to be able to run the ball in this game. Now, in the last 3 games, we've seen the Bucs struggling to get the run going. 4.7 yards per carry is still cool, but just 108 rushing yards per game, 37.3% success rate per rush. Compared to the previous 4 games where they were running the ball all over everybody, 6.4 yards per carry, over 160 rushing yards per game. So it may look like the Bucs rushing attack is trending downwards, but we have to mention that 2 of their last 3 games were against the Chiefs and the Ravens, 2 of the best run defenses in the NFL. Chiefs are 2nd in yards per carry, 4th in success rate per rush. Ravens are 1st and 1st. So 2 of their last 3 games were against elite run defenses. The 49ers are definitely not an elite run defense. They're 8th in yards per carry allowed, 22nd in success rate per rush, 23rd in EPA, 19th in DVOA. I mean, they're not a terrible run defense, but certainly not as good as the Chiefs and Ravens are this year. And in fact, it might even be worse than that. They racked up a lot of their stats against bad rushing attacks. In their 4 games against bottom 12 rushing attacks, they're allowing just 62.8 rushing yards per game, 3.1 yards per carry, 29.2% success rate per rush. So they racked up these elite numbers against the run, against these bad rushing attacks. Look at their numbers when they've actually seen decent rushing attacks. Their 4 games against top 20, not even elite, top 20 rushing attacks. 151 rushing yards allowed per game, 5.49 yards per carry, 48.7% success rate per rush. Stopping the run was the weakness of this 49ers defense last year, and in my opinion, they have the same weakness this year. Keep in mind, they still don't have Hargrave. He's still hurt, so they're not 100% on the defensive front either. In the last 2 weeks, we've seen Tampa rely heavily on the passing attack, 66.4% passing frequency, probably because they were down on the scoreboard. That's probably has something to do with it. I expect a different sort of offensive game plan in this one. I expect to see the Bucs run the ball, and I think they're going to be able to, which makes betting this game extremely difficult because I expect the 49ers to have a big game offensively. I want to lay the 6.5. That's the side I'm on, but I'm not truly comfortable laying 6.5 points on the road against an offense I expect to run the ball. So it's 49ers minus 6.5, lean towards the over. I'll let you know on the live show if I actually place the bet. As of right now, 49ers are pass. That's all the time I have. We got to get this edited and uploaded. But as always, we'll go through every single game on the live show, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Or if you want to just go see what my favorite bets are and all the bets I'm on, just go over to KyleKirms.com and click on open bets. Hopefully the momentum continues. I had a great Friday night, and as I'm recording this, I'm having a very good college football Saturday. There's still night games. I don't want to jinx it, but I'm having a very good start to the day.
So hopefully we bring some momentum into this Sunday. Please remember to bet responsibly. I'll see you all in the morning, 11 a.m.